You go around the corner and you're on the mile. And my guide runner turns to me and goes, "You've got 1 minute." I don't know how I did it, but I managed to get to that finish line with 52 seconds to spare when it was just the most insane moment of my life. What I say to a lot of people is, if I can do it, then you can do it. I'm doing it with literally half a body. I'm only using one side of my body, and if I can do it, you really can do it. It's all in your mind. You really can push yourself further than you can ever think you can. So I run a marathon, got a world record, and now I'm competing against the 10 fittest adaptive athletes in the world in Texas. So my name's Anthony Bryan. I'm an adaptive athlete, I'm a para athlete, and I'm currently the Guinness World Record holder for the fastest marathon with my disability.
Okay, where I want to start this conversation, mate, is I was looking on your Instagram, just doing a bit of prep for today's conversation, and there's a line on your Instagram bio that I really love, which is living a life without limits. And I think let's start this by kind of delving into that. Why are you living your life without limits?
So I had a brain tumor when I was just 6 years old, and when I had an operation to remove this brain tumor, they removed it, and then I suffered a stroke, which means I lost the use of my left side of my body. And doctors said to my parents, unfortunately, Anthony will never run or be very active ever again. Since then, I've kind of made it my life's mission to prove those doctors wrong. And not only have I represented England at the Para World Games and won 2 gold medals in the 1500 meters and 800 meters, but just in 2024, I decided, why not go for the biggest run in the world? I'll do the London Marathon. And not only did I complete the London Marathon, but I broke the Guinness World Record for the fastest marathon with a hemiplegia, which is my disability. And I just thought to myself, if I had listened to those doctors and thought, I'll never do this, I'll never do that ever again, then I would never really have pushed myself to see how far I could really go. And I just kind of realized that everyone can do that in life. We all kind of sit in our comfort zones. We never really push ourselves outside that to see, what could I really do? And I thought to myself, let's see what I can do. And I just keep pushing those boundaries and surprising myself and seeing all these amazing things that I can actually achieve.
What does it feel like to say those things? Because obviously you've done those things and you've been through all of this throughout your life, but to kind of say them out loud, does that fill you with like a sense of pride, a sense of achievement? Like, how does it make you feel?
Definitely achievement. I'd say, because I went from an able-bodied child to a child with a disability, that's totally just destroyed all my self-confidence, destroyed my self-esteem. I was ashamed of myself, embarrassed of myself. When I went back to school as a child, I went from being a confident child to being the one hiding at the back.
Yeah.
Because I went to an able-bodied school, I was the only disabled child in the whole school. So I used to hide away. And there was, I'll give you an example, there was a PE lesson, and the teachers, because this was in the 90s, the teachers were really worried, didn't really have any like education on how to cope with someone with disability. So I was kind of left to the side. And there was this football lesson one day, and I was like, I can't run around, but I can go in goal. And the teacher said to me, "You can't go in goal. You need 2 hands to go in goal." So just like comments like that made me stay away from sport. And it wasn't until I got into secondary school that we did a Cooper run test, which is 12 minutes of running. And I just thought to myself, I can't come last in this. I just need to keep running and running. And I hated running. I didn't do any kind of sport. And 12 minutes was quite a long time, but I just made sure I just kept going. And out of a class of 30 able-bodied kids, I ended up finishing 15th, I think. And the teacher just went, "Whoa, how did you do that?" So I just had to keep going, sir. And it just, he said, from watching me do that, he then realized that I could do more than he thought I could. And he was the one that is like, "I need to speak to your parents." So he called my parents into the school, and the first thing he said to them was, "Get that boy in a running club. Just get that boy in a running club." And because I was always shy and self-conscious and stayed away from sport is what I loved. Football was what I loved, always loved. But I could never get into a team because of my disability. And getting into running eventually is what brought out my confidence. Um, in 2015, I got selected to represent England at the Cerebral Palsy World Games, and I ended up winning a gold medal in the 800 and 1500. And this just boosted my confidence. This made me actually feel good about myself for once. And then realizing that I could push myself further, the further I pushed myself, the more my confidence grew. I'm still very shy and self conscious in person, but sport is where I just felt good about myself. That's why I do it. So when people say to me, "Why do you run so much? Why do you always push yourself to do more? Why do you always go to the gym?" It's because it makes me feel good about myself, pushing those boundaries and seeing what I can really do. And by doing that, I've actually people coming up to me and, "Wow, how do you do that? That's incredible." I'm inspiring others as well. Then I started putting on my social media, and I've had families with kids with disabilities saying, "Oh my God, you inspire my child. You give us hope for their future," and things like that. So by me pushing myself more is helping others. I'd love to be the role model to the child to the children of today. Be the role model that I never had really.
Standing on the start line of that 800 and that 1500, like that must have been quite an emotional experience, really. Because even hearing your story, as we've been doing this in the past 10 minutes, like there's obviously a lot that you've been through from that happened when you were 6 to going to school, kind of being I'm not going to say bullied, but like told almost that you can't do the same things as the other kids, to then moving forward to the Cooper run and doing that 12 minutes. Like
Hmm.
there's so much that happened to get you to that start line. What was it like standing on the start of that start line?
It was it was a crazy moment because I started off as a sprinter, and I in 2012 I actually qualified to go to the Paralympic trials at the Olympic Stadium.
Cool.
And when you get to the Olympic trials, I got to the 100-meter final and the 200-meter final, but it was a top three that get selected to go to the Paralympics, and I finished fourth, just missing out. But this was an incredible like achievement. Like this was like wow, just gave me the fire in my belly. I want more of this. Um, so I then volunteered to work at the Olympics and the Paralympics, and I just remember the crowd going crazy for all the Olympians and Paralympians, and this is like, wow, I want to be part of this. But what was interesting was when the Olympians walked out, obviously the crowd went crazy, but when the Paralympians walked out, the crowd were even louder. And when the Paralympians were doing their phenomenal sports, I've never heard the crowd so loud. So I said to one of the guys, I was like, "What? Why are they louder for the Paralympians than the Olympians?" And he said, "Well, you need to think of it like this. Yeah, the Olympians train hard and they diet and they do this and they do that, but the Paralympians are doing that. Plus, they have an added difficulty, which is their disability. They're missing limbs, they're in wheelchairs. So that's even more impressive." And I just kind of thought, I've never really thought of it like that.
Yeah.
I've always been embarrassed, but I need to kind of own and show what I can really do. And after that, I said to my coach, "I want to be there next time. I want to push as hard as I can." So she said to me, "Okay, so you're slightly slower off the start line because you can only use one side. So why don't we try longer distance? Why don't we try 800 meters and 1500 meters?" And as a sprinter, that's like unheard of. So
I'm
I
not
was
going
like,
to
I
do
can't do that. That's impossible.
it.
But she said to me, "How do you know you can't do it if you've never tried? Give it a go. And if you still hate it, you can always go back to sprinting." So I gave it a go. And my first session was something like 10 400 meters with a few minutes rest in between. And I just remember even the 7 and 8 year old girls, half the size of me, were flying past me. I was at the back of the group. I was like, this is demoralizing. This is horrible. But I just made sure I did every rep. And my coach said to me after, "So how did it go?" I was like, "I hated it, embarrassing, not for me." Even the younger ones were going past me. But she said, "You can't expect to go in there and be better than everyone else when you haven't even put the work in. They might be younger than you, but they've been training for years to get where they are. give it a go for another few months. And if you still hate it, you can always go back to sprinting. This was kind of the first time that I had someone telling me, give it a go and see what you can do, instead of being told, you can't do that, you can't do this. So I gave it a go. And after a few months, she was right. I started getting fitter, started getting stronger. I think it was more, started to believe in myself that I could do it. And I've gone from the back of the group to the middle group to near the front of the group and keeping up, starting winning medals. And this made me feel good about myself. And it just went on from there, really. In 2015, I then got selected to go to the World Games, where I won 2 gold medals. And I've now gone from thinking 1500 meters impossible to now being the world champion. That was the first wow moment.
You said something then which, look, I could really relate to, and I think so many people listening to this can relate to, and I've probably heard people say in the past when they've talked about running, no matter whether you've got a disability or you're able-bodied, that phrase, how do you know you can't do it if you've never tried? Like you will hear people saying, I can't run, I could never run, I could never do that sort of race, I could never do a marathon, I could never do this, I could never do that. But genuinely, that's so true, isn't it? If you haven't tried, how do you actually know?
And I'm a big believer that everyone can, but you talk yourself out of it and tell yourself you can't. Even when you're running, even when I do races now, and I've done hundreds, thousands, my head still says to me, come on, I'm tired, start walking. But you have to fight through that and just keep going, especially in the marathon. The marathon was a crazy one for me. That was one of the toughest.
Yeah, talk to me about that, because you've already mentioned the world records. Give us some times on that, and also just get into a little bit of the reasoning behind why you decided to do the 26.2.
So after the World Games, I thought, can I push myself further? So then I put my name down for a 10k. Never done a 10k. I did the London 10k, and I thought, let's just do it. Haven't done any training. Haven't run that far before. Let's see if I can do it. So I got to about 5k. Now I'm starting to ache a bit. Then I got to 7k, but because I can't use one side, it's dragging along the ground. My right side's pulling me along. My right side does all the work. And at that point, I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy. I'm not a long distance runner. Let's stop now. Let's start walking for a bit. Because at that point, that's where you get quite a few people just stopping and walking. And I'm looking and thinking, oh, I want to walk now. So I start slowing down. And as I started slowing down, this random woman ran past me. She goes, oh my God, I've been running behind you for the past few miles. You're doing amazing. Keep going. Don't stop now. We're nearly at the finish. And just that kind of morale and that nice message from that lady really kind of picked up my kind of how I was feeling and picked me up. And I thought, I need to keep going. So I kept going thanks to that lady. Otherwise, I would have stopped. So I kept going, got to the finish line in about 55 minutes. And I thought, I was going to stop. I thought that I was down and out, and I kept going. Can I go faster than this? Can I push myself further? And then I went to my coach. I put some training in, and my PB now is 47 minutes.
Oh wow!
So I knocked quite a lot off, and I don't think I'm done yet. I still think I can do more. But that was the moment I thought I've done no training, but I completed a 10k. That is huge. And so I did loads more 10Ks, knocked my times down, obviously. And then I thought, can I go further? What's the ultimate challenge? And obviously it's the London Marathon. I've always thought London Marathon's impossible. And even now people are telling me, you shouldn't do it. You'll get injured. You'll break your leg. Don't do it. It's insane. But I just had to see if I could really do it. And then I thought, just put my name down, let's do it. And then after that, I checked. I had an email saying, have you ever thought about going for a world record? So I looked it up. I went to the search bar, typed in disability, typed in my disability, and it popped up. I was like, oh, wow, look. And it was 5 hours 50. And my 10K time was, I could do a 50-minute 10K pretty steadily. So I thought, interesting. Put the training in, and my training runs were going really well. I did a half marathon in 2 hours 2 minutes, something like that. And I thought, oh, I could really kind of go for this world record. So I applied to Guinness World Record, um, did all my training, and it got to marathon day. And yeah, it was pretty nerve wracking because of my disability. I'm only using one side of my body, and that means I'm doing everything differently to a normal runner. So I did a lot of research into it, and there's no research online for someone with my disability. So I was kind of just in the dark and learning as I went along. And what I realized was, because I'm using one side of the body, I'm using double the amount of energy as a normal person. So then I'm then depleting all my energy, and everything I eat is just burning straight through it all. And then I need to eat more than the average person. So I think in marathon training, I was having about 8,000 calories a day, which is
That's
insane.
insane.
On the morning of the marathon, I had 4 bowls of porridge. And I think even then, halfway through the marathon, I should have been eating. I didn't. And I think I just burnt through all of that. So I learned a lot. In the marathon, it was an insane journey on a run. So we started off the run. I had a guide runner with me who went all the whole way with me and was amazing. So we started off the first 10 miles, went amazing, feeling comfortable, feeling good, keeping it steady, 10-minute miles, keeping it there. And so I wear a leg brace on my left leg to hold my ankle in place, otherwise my ankle gives way. And we got to 10 miles in, and I still feel good, but my leg brace started cutting into my leg. So there was this big cut, and it was bleeding. And then it was rubbing up and down against that
Oh,
cut, which was horrible. So I said to my guide runner, I was like, mate, I'm going to have to take this brace off. And he looked at me like, are you sure? You've never run without it before, ever. It's like, you still have 16 miles to go. Are you sure? I was like, it's just so painful. I need to get it off. So we took it off, and he put it in his bag. And now I'm running with no support on my leg. So because I can't use the left side, the ankle just kind of just hangs like that. So that means if it just leans to the side a bit too much, the ankle just snaps and gives away. And it is so painful. So I hobbled on from that point. And now, because there's no support on my left leg, my right side is doing even more
yeah.
work. So the next mile in, there's a video on my Instagram because I videoed every single mile. We did an update every mile. And the mile after, he videoed me, and I was like, I'm knackered. That mile just took all my energy away from me. But I just hobbled on. I kept going. And then we got to mile 18, and I am hobbling really, really bad. My miles went from 10-minute miles, really, really good, to about 13 to 14-minute miles. And it's just all one leg. And all my energy had been depleted way too soon, sooner than I thought. And at 18, because my right leg's overworking, I got cramp in my calf, my quad, and my hamstring on my right leg, the one leg I can use all at once. So I've gone, my guide runner's caught me. I'm holding on. He got deep heat spray out. He's spraying my leg down. We're stretching it. He's like, mate, we got to keep going. And so at this point, I've got 8 miles still to go. So I kind of hobbled on, and the pain was excruciating. To run while you have cramp is just
Oh,
madness. But I realized you can hold a slow pace before that muscle starts cramping. As soon as I start putting speed in, cramp, speed, cramp. So I kept it at pace just underneath that cramp, and I just kept hobbling on to see what I could do. What stayed in my head at that point was I read the book David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me,
yeah.
and there's a few quotes in there that he says the 40% rule. When you think you're down and out and you've got absolutely nothing left, you're actually only 40% done. There's 60% more you can tap into. You just got to push through those pain barriers. And he said, what happens then when everything is trying to stop you? Once you keep pushing, your brain then goes, oh God, he's not going to stop. We need to open up a new compartment in the brain and make sure he survives and keep him going. So I just kept that in mind, and I just kept taking one step after another, one step after another. And it was excruciating painful. but I just kept going. And at this point, the time is slipping away, slipping away, slipping away. It's getting pretty close to the world record time. The world record time was 5 hours 50. I'm getting closer and closer to that time. We get to the very last minute, very last mile, and my guide runner looks at me and goes, "Anne, you've got 9 minutes to run this mile. You now have to start running." And at that point, I'm running a 13-minute mile or a lot slower. But a 9-minute mile, normally for me, no problem.
Yeah.
But the legs are gone. I'm in pain, no energy. And it's 1 mile. So I just start picking it up a little bit more. And then you kind of get down the hill and you go around the corner and you're on the mile. And my guide runner turns to me and goes, "And you've got 1 minute. There's nothing. There's all or nothing now. If you want this record, you have to sprint." And the mile is probably like 200 meters, around about that. And he just said, "You've got to sprint." Cramp in my leg, anything, everything. I don't know how I did it. I just started sprinting as hard as I could, driving my legs around as hard and as fast as I could. There's a video on my Instagram. He's videoing it as well as I'm doing it. I'm sprinting. I'm going in and out of people, trying to get to that finish line. And I was thinking to myself, God, if cramp kicks in right now, I'm just going to hit the ground and just lie there. But I just kept sprinting. And I don't know how I did it, but I managed to get to that finish line with 52 seconds to spare. And it was just the most insane moment of my life, honestly.
How did that feel? Because, you know, taking me through that whole story, you can see the kind of the elation on your face. For people that are just listening, they won't be able to see that, but I would say come and watch the full version as well, because just seeing you describe that, Ant, is, I had shivers literally all over my body. I was like, that is, you know, it sounds like an unbelievable, as you said, journey in a journey.
We
Try
couldn't plan that.
No, you literally couldn't. Try and sum up that feeling on the finish line, because I know it's going to be hard to put into words, but is there a way you can?
It was a crazy moment because I'd given everything to get to that finish line, and obviously there's 3 or 4 different clocks. So you get to the finish line. There's the clock on the finish line. Obviously that starts when the elite runners start, so that's not your finish time. My watch was saying, so I forgot to start my Strava on the start line. So I started about 100 or 200 meters in. My guide runner had hit his time, and all 3 of our times said something different. So he was like, "And I think we've just missed out, literally just missed out." And I was like, "My watch has died. I don't even know what it says." And we're like, I don't know. And then my brother was on the side, and because the marathon is so busy, everyone's phone signal is freezing. So he's got his phone out. He's like, "My phone's frozen. It's buffering at the moment. It's not telling you what the time was." So we're just waiting here like this.
Oh, God.
And then eventually, so there's a Guinness World Record 10, and you're supposed to go over there. And even if you haven't got it, you're supposed to go over there and let them know you're there. So we went over and they were like, "What's your name?" I was like, "Anthony Bryan." And they took down my details, looked everything up, and they went, "New Guinness World Record." I was just like, that was the moment. That was a crazy moment.
And like there's a photo on your Instagram of you holding that record as well, and I'm sure that's up in your place. Every time
Yeah.
you look at that, that must remind you of what an incredible day that was. But not only that, like that you can that you can genuinely do whatever you put your mind to, right? Because that's just the
Yeah.
culmination of everything you've done throughout your whole life. That's the culmination of everything you've done since you were 6 years old, since what happened. It must genuinely feel just incredible to see every day.
It is. It's a story that I wanted so bad,
Yeah.
just to say that I can do it. Um,
Yeah.
I was one of those stubborn children. If you tell a child you can't do that, they're like, "Yes, I can." That was my kind of mindset when I was 6 years old. When they said you'll never run or walk, or you'll never run or be very active ever again, and it's just like, "Oh well, yeah, I'll show you." And that was my thought process all the way through my childhood. And now I've just realized that actually I can. So I just keep pushing that and keep pushing that and keep pushing that. Um,
The word story you just said as well. So that's super interesting. I just wanted to pick up on that quickly because whatever happens in your life, you are like the master of your own story, aren't you? You tell your own story,
you
and that
write
feels
your
like yeah, and that feels like exactly what you're doing,
yeah.
which
And
is unbelievable.
I don't think I'm done yet.
No, you're
That's
not. I can tell you that. You're absolutely not.
people always say your first marathon is always your worst marathon. You learn a lot from it. So I think I've definitely learned a lot. And I think by me going through it, I can then teach others with disabilities. This is how I did it. I'll show you ways, and that you can do it too. Lead the way for others to do it. Because since posting on my Instagram all the videos and marathon stuff that I've been doing, people have been messaging me saying, "I want to do a marathon now. I want to give it a go." So hopefully, it's inspiring other people with disabilities to get into running as well.
What is that like? Because look, whether it's down at a race, I've seen you actually down at loads of run through races over the years. I ran Battersea back in, was it November? I'm pretty sure you ran that race as well, and I saw you down there November 24th. Did you run that race? The
Yeah,
links at the Battersea Running Festival.
Batsy's one of my favourite ones. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, you're always with us, but like whether it's down at a race or whether it's somebody dropping you a DM, what is that like when somebody does say to you, "Hey," and whether it's a family member has seen it or a kid has seen it or the person you're actually speaking to has seen it, and you've inspired them to take up their own journey, whatever that is, whether it's in running or sport or another endeavor. How does that make you feel?
That makes me feel good that not only that I've been doing running to better myself, but now I can help change lives as well, help inspire them to do it as well. The amount of times that I've done the run through races and I've got to the finish line and people have said to me, "Oh my god, I've been trying to keep up with you the whole way around, and you're amazing. You're incredible what you do, and thanks to you, watching you run, I kept going." And that's a really good feeling. That's really nice because I'd love to inspire and motivate and be a role model to others to be help them on their success journey as well.
And I think you are doing that. So yeah, I think hold your head high in the fact that you are already doing that, and you're going to continue to do that, I'm sure. And on that, because you just said then I'm not done yet. I actually picked up on something you said earlier on in the conversation where I thought Ant's definitely a guy that finishes one thing and is like, let's go on to the next thing. When you were talking about your 10K and you said 55 minutes, I can do better than that. I can go further than that. It's like there's that mindset of the next thing. So is it the marathon distance we want to go for again, or what is the next thing for you, Ant?
This year I am doing the London Marathon again. Um, I want to see what time I can get without stopping. So I had to stop 4 times because of the cramps, and I had to stop to take my brace off. And I went through my Strava and I looked at all the places where I stopped, and I added up all the minutes, and it added up to about 20 minutes.
Okay.
So I think without take off those stoppages, keep it consistent running. I reckon I can. I would love to get down to 4:30, something like that.
Yeah,
That'd be amazing.
I think you genuinely got that, and to put yourself back in that situation again, a situation that a lot of runners put themselves in, don't they, after going through a race, but you've obviously gone through a race in a slightly different way to a lot of people have, but with those challenges like having to take that leg brace off and things like that
Mm.
nobody else would have to experience something like that. To put yourself back in that position is very it's admirable, but it also shows who you are. It also shows that go again mentality, and
Yeah.
yeah, I've got no qualms in the fact that I'm pretty sure that if you're setting yourself a 4:30 goal is what you're going to come out with.
And someone mentioned me, "Oh, have you ever heard about the six majors?" And then I looked into it. I'm like, "Oh God, yeah, that is cool." So to be a world record holder and to do the six majors, that'd be another a crazy achievement as well.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we talked about kind of the beginning of your journey and that whole thing that led up to you becoming a runner, but without without that 12-minute Cooper test, this may never have happened. And
I think it was
that,
about that teacher saying, "Let me speak to your parents," because
yeah,
I would never have told them.
would you not know?
No.
So if it wasn't for them, then this wouldn't have happened. And do you know what? Then that shows, doesn't it, that you should always, that teacher has in essence changed your life in some ways.
Yes. Yeah.
So you should always, if you can, help others, whatever situation they might be in. And I think
Help
that's
pick
what you're doing
others up
right now.
because that will
Yeah.
really change their journey. For example, the lady that ran past me on the 10K, her just saying those words to me, "Keep going, you're doing amazing, don't give up. I've been watching you the whole way for the past few miles." That message really picked me up. I would never got to the finish of that 10K run. So even when I'm doing runs with RunThrough, the amount of people that run past me going, "Oh man, you're doing amazing." Those little messages mean a lot. They really do.
And have you ever thought about going further than a marathon, mate? Because I
People
think
say
that
that.
yes.
You keep pushing it further, you keep pushing it further. So you're going to do an ultra now? I was like, that. I think an ultra might be too much. I don't know because after the marathon, I thought, what more can I do this year? So I then put myself in for um, the CrossFit Open, which is weightlifting and
Yeah.
weights, because they recently added an adaptive category, which is a disability category. So I went along to the Open. I do loads of running, weightlifting not so much, but I'm extremely strong on my right side. So I went along, did the Open, and I qualified. And then I got through to the semi-final, and so I got through to the semi-final. We had to do like 10 rounds of 10 pull-ups, then 10 box jumps, and I'm doing it all one-arm pull-ups and things like that. And I thought, surely I won't get through this. And I had to do 10 one-arm press-ups and things like that. And I thought it was quite slow. So I entered my time, you enter your videos in, and ended up qualifying. Now I got into the final of the CrossFit Games, which was in Texas. So I went to Texas in September, and it's a top 10 in the world that compete against each other. And this was even more insane. So I run a marathon, got a world record, and now I'm competing against the 10 fittest adaptive athletes in the world in Texas. And it was 4 days of 2 workouts a day, and it's lifting weights, doing pull-ups, doing burpees. It was 37 degrees outside. We had to do air bike for 40 calories outside in the heat. It was insane. But at the end of the 4 days of pushing myself, I finished 8th fittest athlete in the world. And I just thought, this is insane.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that because it just feels like even though I don't want to say your breakthrough year, right? But it does genuinely feel like that kind of was the case. Like you've even though you've done all this amazing stuff before, there were so many things that happened in that
Yeah.
such short period of time. How do you process that, Ant? Because you've got all of these things happening all of the time. You've got all these people speaking to you about everything you're doing. You've got people like me that ask for you to sit down and have a chat with them on a podcast. Like, but how do you process that? Like you as Ant?
Um, it's literally that. That's my motto: life without limits. Push yourself to your limits. See what you can achieve. I The only reason I got into it is because a friend said to me, "Oh, you ever thought about the Open?" And from the words of that coach before, how do you know you can't do it if you don't give it a go? I thought, just give it a go. Ended up qualifying and ended up going to the CrossFit Games finals, which is the highest level of CrossFit. That was my first year. And I remember doing the workouts and people were like, "How long have you been doing this for?" I was like, "It's my first year." They're like, "You got the finals in your first year? What?" I was like, "I ran a marathon a few months ago as well." I was like, "What?" Yeah, it's just insane. I just kept finding things and thought, I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go. Also, that year, after the CrossFit Games, I thought, what can I try next? And everyone's been talking about Hyrox this and Hyrox that. And Hyrox is running and CrossFit combined together, kind of. So it's like running with exercise stations in between for 8K, so it's 8 1Ks with 8 exercise stations in between. I thought that sounds amazing. Let me give that a go. So I did that in Manchester last year, and I love that so much. I think I love that more than any of them. And I completed it. And there was one of the stations where it's on your 7th station, so you've done 7 1Ks already, and you got to put a sandbag on your shoulders, and you got to do lunge walks with your knee to the ground every time for 200 meters. And I never do lunge walks because my legs are fatigued all the time. There was a point I got halfway through and I got cramp in my right leg. So I've dropped the bag and I'm in cramp. So I stretched my leg out and there's a crowd of people cheering you on, going, come on, keep going. So I picked the sandbag back up and I put it on my shoulders and I went back into a lunge and I just kept pushing on. And I got to a point where I looked over and there was these 3 women and they were crying their eyes out. They're like, come on, you're doing amazing. Keep going. And I was like, I must be doing something right. So I just kept pushing. I got to the finish line and they actually interviewed me after and they're like, that was one of the most amazing things we've seen. You never gave up. You kept pushing. And that is the kind of core of who we are. And I was like, amazing. They're like, did you know that we're the adaptive category have just been added to the World Championships of Hyrox in Chicago next year? And you have to go for it. And I'm like, oh, you're giving me war things.
I think the problem here, Ant, is that we need to put a cap on things, don't we? I feel like there's literally no stopping you.
I would love to do that though. That'd be amazing.
I know. I saw some of those images and photos on your Instagram as well. And yeah, I think it's just that, isn't it? Of we spoke about, at RunThrough races, at the marathon, at the CrossFit Games, at Hyrox. It's when people are there and reacting to you doing an amazing thing, because they I guess they see the disability visually, but they also see you being so, I mean, just doing the thing despite the disability. And I think when you see that in person, and I've had the privilege of speaking to you now for 40 minutes, right? And I can kind of work out who you are a little bit more. But when you see that visually, it's so impactful, isn't it? It's so impactful. And I think you doing what you are doing is incredibly inspiring and you mentioned, people with a disability, but mate, it's incredibly inspiring for everybody, isn't it? To be able to see you pushing through, ignoring that 40% of hurt and getting for that next 60%. It's unbelievable. And there will be people listening to this right now that want to go and find you and want to go and follow you. So I would say, yeah, go and follow Ant on his Instagram page. I'll put the link to the in the description of this podcast, because it is incredibly inspiring. Actually, a couple of times recently, you've posted something, and I hadn't wanted to go out and do my session or my run. I thought, Ant's out there, got to get after it. Come on, let's go, let's get after it. So yeah, it's cool. It's amazing what you're doing. We'll finish with this, mate, because we've kind of touched on it a few times that I can't. There's no way I can do that. But if there is somebody listening to this right now that is uttering those words in the new year, we're just into 2025. They might have friends that are doing this or doing that, or setting this goal or setting that goal, and they're thinking to themselves, "Not for me." What would be your words to them?
What I say to a lot of people is, if I can do it, then you can do it. I'm doing it with literally half a body. I'm only using one side of my body. And if I can do it, you really can do it. Push yourself to see what you can really do. And it's all in your mind. You really can push yourself further than you can ever think you can. And what I say to a lot of people is, I wish I had, if I had a time machine when I was a 6-year-old child in that hospital, and I fast forward to the time now just to see what my life turns out to be, I want that child in that hospital bed to look at me and go, wow, is that me? Is that who I become? Just think, who do you want to be? Who to inspire your younger self? Don't go to a race and think, oh, I can't run, I don't want to come last, I'm no good. Go out there, set yourself a time and complete that race. Then the next time, go there and beat your own time, beat yourself, because the more you do, you realise, wow, look, I'm improving, look what I can really do. And that's all I did. I just set out on trying to beat my own time, beat myself further and further and further, and it ended up beating the world record in the end. So keep going, keep pushing, never give up, and live a life without limits.